The wind howled through the shattered palisades of Castle Black, carrying the stench of blood and ash. Mance Rayder stood bound before a tent emblazoned with the flaming stag of Stannis Baratheon, his wrists chafed raw by hempen ropes. Around him, the free folk, his people, knelt in the snow, their spears broken, their defiance crushed under the hooves of Southron knights. The Battle of Castle Black was lost, and with it, their dream of freedom in Westeros. Stannis Baratheon emerged from the tent, his face carved from granite, eyes burning with unyielding purpose. "Mance Rayder," he said, voice cutting through the gale, "you styled yourself king beyond the wall. Your rebellion ends here. Bend the knee, swear fealty, and your savages may yet live under my laws. Refuse, and you'll watch them die." Mance's heart thundered. He'd forsaken the Night's Watch years ago, trading black cloaks for the Wildling's song of freedom. To kneel now to a kneeler king was to betray that song. Yet he saw Tormund Giantsbane among the captives, bloodied but unbowed, and the faces of women and children shivering in the cold. They'd followed him south, trusting his promise of safety beyond the wall. Could he let pride doom them? "I broke one oath already," Mance said, his voice low, rough as frost-cracked stone. "What's one more if it saves my people?" He met Stannis' gaze, unblinking, then sank to one knee. The snow soaked his furs, chilling his bones. "I swear fealty to Stannis Baratheon, king of Westeros." A murmur rippled through the free folk. Some spat curses, calling him traitor, kneeler, worse. Tormund's eyes blazed with betrayal, his fists clenched as if to strike. Mance leaned close, whispering, "This is for our people, not for me. Keep them alive, Tormund." The giant's glare softened, but only just. Stannis nodded, curt and cold. "Rise, Mance Rayder, you'll prove your loyalty in deeds, not words." He turned to his knights. "House the wildlings south of the wall, they're under my protection now." As the ropes were cut, Mance stood, his knees aching, his heart heavier than iron. He'd been a king, chosen by the free folk, not crowned by blood or steel. Now he was a sworn man again, bound to a king whose justice was as rigid as the wall itself. The free folk watched him, some with hope, others with scorn. He'd knelt to save them, but at what cost? The wind screamed, and Mance wondered if the White Walkers, stirring in the north, cared for oaths or kings at all. Chapter 2. The Red Woman's Gaze. The fires of Castle Black burned low, casting shadows across the yard where Mance Rayder stood, free but tethered by his oath to Stannis Baratheon. Melisandre, the Red Priestess, watched him, her eyes gleaming like embers. She'd summoned him to the king's tower where flames danced in a bronze brazier. "The Lord of Light has shown me your path, Mance Rayder," she said, voice like silk over steel. "You knelt to Stannis, but it's our laws will that binds you. You'll unite the north or burn." Mance bristled, his wildling blood recoiling at her talk of gods. He'd seen too many die for faith to trust her visions. "I knelt for my people, not your fire god," he said. "Keep your flames away from the free folk." Melisandre smiled, undeterred, and spoke of a vision, a wildling king wreathed in flame standing against a tide of ice. "You'll burn, Mance, but not as you think." Jon Snow entered, his face grim. As Lord Commander, he'd allowed the wildlings south of the wall, but the Night's Watch muttered of betrayal. "Stannis wants you to rally the free folk," Jon said. "He needs warriors, not just oaths." Mance nodded, seeing the necessity. The White Walkers loomed, and Westeros's wars paled beside that threat. He met Jon's eyes, recognizing a man torn between duty and heart, much like himself. Stannis had ordered the wildlings to camp south in the Gift, sparking clashes with the Watch. Mance negotiated with Stannis, demanding his people remain free from Arlor's worship. "They'll fight for you," he said, "but they're no kneeler's thralls." Stannis, rigid as iron, agreed, but his knights sneered at the savages. Mance felt the weight of his choice, his people safe, but their spirit chafed under Southron rule. As he left the tower, Melisandre's voice followed. "The fire sees all, Mance Rayder, even your son hidden among the free folk." His blood ran cold. He'd sent his boy north with Val, safe from war, or so he thought. The Red Woman's gaze promised danger, and Mance knew he'd knelt to one king, but another power watched him now. In the yard, Tormund waited, his scowl a storm. "You're no king no more," he growled. Mance clasped his shoulder. "I'm what they need me to be." The wall loomed above, a reminder that worse enemies than Stannis stirred in the dark. Chapter 3 Tormund's rebellion south of the wall, the free folks' camp sprawled across the frostbitten gift, a chaos of tents and cookfires. Mance Rayder walked among his people, their eyes heavy with distrust. He'd bent the knee to Stannis Baratheon, and the wound to their pride festered. Tormund Giantsbane, towering and thunderous, stood atop a barrel, bellowing to a crowd. Mance calls himself one of us, yet kneels to a Southron king. Are we free folk or Stannis' dogs? Murmurs turned to shouts and a fight broke out, wildlings hurling fists at Stannis' knights. Steel flashed as a knight drew his sword and blood stained the snow. Mance shoved through the crowd, shouting, "Enough!" He seized Tormund's arm, pulling him down. "You'll kill us all with this." Tormund's fist swung, but Mance dodged, years of ranging honing his reflexes. "You want to fight?" Mance roared. "Fight me then." The camp fell silent as Mance and Tormund circled, axes in hand. Tormund's blows were heavy, fueled by betrayal, but Mance was swift, parrying and weaving. He struck Tormund's axe aside, pinning him to the ground. "Kill me or listen," Mance panted. Tormund glared, then spat. "Speak, Neela." Mance stood, offering his hand. "We bent the knee to live, not to die for a Southron king. The true enemy's north, not here." The free folk watched, some nodding, others still scowling. Mance pulled Tormund up, his voice carrying. "The White Walkers don't care for crowns or oaths. We fight with Stannis or we die alone." Tormund's eyes softened, though his growl remained. "You've changed, Mance, but I'll follow for now." He turned to the crowd. "No more blood today, save it for the dead." Stannis' knights, shaken, retreated to their lines. Mance felt the rift between his people and the Southrons deepen, but he'd bought time. As he walked away, a young wildling girl, no older than 10, tugged his cloak. "Are we still free, Mance?" she asked. His heart ached. "As free as we can be," he said, ruffling her hair. But in his gut, he knew freedom was a fragile thing under Stannis' iron rule. That night by a fire, Mance sharpened his axe, Tormund beside him. "You spared me," Tormund muttered. "Don't expect it twice." Mance chuckled, but his thoughts drifted north to Val and his son hidden in the wilds. The wall loomed beyond, its shadow a warning. Kneeling had saved his people, but the cost was trust, and the war for Westeros' survival had only begun. Chapter 4 The Northern Lords in Castle Black's great hall. A fire roared, but the air was cold with suspicion. Mance Rayder stood before a council of Northern Lords, their faces weathered by war and loss. Stannis Baratheon sat at the head, his crown a stark circlet, his gaze demanding loyalty. The lords, Umber, Karstark and lesser houses, stared at Mance, their scorn plain. "A Wildling King kneels," Great Jon Umber rumbled. "Why should we trust savages?" Mance held his ground, his furs a stark contrast to their polished armor. "You don't trust me," he said, voice steady. "Trust this? The Boltons hold Winterfell, flaying your kin. My free folk can help take it back." Murmurs rose, skeptical but intrigued. Jon Snow at Stannis' side nodded. "Mance's warriors know the North's terrain, they're fierce and we need them." His support carried weight, though the Night's Watch grumbled behind him. Lord Karstark spat. "Wildlings'll loot our lands, not save them." Mance stepped forward, meeting his glare. "My people want homes, not your gold. Give us the gift and we'll fight for Westeros." Stannis' eyes narrowed, weighing the offer. "You'd lead them?" he asked. Mance nodded. "I'll deliver Winterfell or die trying." The room fell silent, the audacity of a wildling's pledge hanging heavy. Stannis leaned forward. "You'll lead the vanguard, Rayder. Prove your oath or I'll have your head." Mance accepted, though he felt the noose of his fealty tighten. The lords whispered, some impressed, others outraged. Great Jon Umber laughed, a booming sound. "If the savage keeps his word, I'll drink to him. If not, I'll gut him myself." As the council dispersed, Jon pulled Mance aside. "You're playing a dangerous game," he said. "Stannis doesn't bend and your people don't kneel easily." Mance smirked. "Nor do I, but the White Walkers won't wait for us to sort our grudges." Jon's eyes held a flicker of respect, a shared understanding of the North's true threat. Outside, the wind carried the scent of snow. Mance found Tormund drilling wildlings, their spears clumsy but eager. "The lords'll never love us," Tormund growled. "Nor we them," Mance replied. "But we'll fight together, or the dead'll feast on us all." He looked south toward Winterfell, where Bolton banners mocked the North's honor. Kneeling had been bitter, but leading men to reclaim that castle might redeem it. Yet in his heart, Mance felt the shadow of Melisandre's words, her visions of fire and ice. The true war waited, and he'd sworn to face it for his people, not for crowns. Chapter 5. The march south. Snow lashed the Kingsroad, a white veil swallowing Stannis Baratheon's army as it marched south toward Winterfell. Mance Rayder trudged at the vanguard, leading 5,000 free folk, their furs dusted with frost. Behind them, Stannis' knights rode in rigid lines, their banners snapping in the gale. The wildlings' undisciplined sprawl irked the Southrons, and Mance felt the weight of keeping peace as heavy as his axe. Davos Seaworth, Stannis' hand, rode beside him, breath steaming. "You're no lord, yet you lead like one," Davos said, his smuggler's grin faint. Mance snorted. "I knelt to a king, not a drillmaster. My people fight free or not at all." They spoke of loyalty, Davos's to Stannis, Mance's to the free folk, and found common ground in their low-born roots. "Kings don't care for men like us," Davos mused, "but we keep their crowns steady." The wildlings struggled with Southron tactics, their skirmishes with knights sparking curses and drawn blades. Mance intervened, teaching his warriors basic formations, their spears forming ragged but effective lines. Sir Godry Faring, a Baratheon knight, watched, his sneer softening to grudging respect. "Savages learn quick," he admitted. Mance nodded, hiding his relief. Unity was fragile, and Winterfell's walls loomed in his mind. A scout galloped back, face pale. "Bolton men, my lord, hiding in a valley ahead, ready to ambush." Mance's gut tightened. He'd fought Boltons before, their cruelty a match for the North's harsh winters. He turned to Davos. "Tell Stannis we'll draw them out, my folk know these woods." Davos hesitated, then nodded, spurring his horse to the king's banner. As night fell, Mance gathered his lieutenants, Tormund, Val's kin, and others. "We hit fast like wolves," he said. "No mercy for flayers." Tormund grinned, hefting his axe. "About time we bloodied someone besides each other." The wildlings murmured agreement, their fire rekindled. Mance looked north, where the wall faded into the storm, and thought of his son, safe with Val. He'd knelt to Stannis to save them, but this fight was for the North's heart. The wind howled, masking their steps as they crept toward the valley. Mance gripped his axe, the cold biting his fingers. The Boltons waited, their trap set, but Mance had hunted in these wilds too long to be prey. For his people, for Westeros, he'd turn the hunters into the hunted. Chapter 6. The ambush. The frozen valley echoed with the crunch of snow under wildling boots as Mance Rayder led his vanguard into the Bolton trap. Moonlight glinted off steel hidden among the pines, Roose Bolton's men, poised to crush Stannis Baratheon's army. Mance signaled his free folk, their breath clouding in the chill. "Spread out," he whispered. "Hit their flanks like a storm." The wildlings melted into the shadows, silent as wolves. The Boltons charged, expecting a ragged mob, but Mance's guerrilla tactics turned their ambush into chaos. Wildling spears thrust from the dark, felling knights and footmen. Mance fought at the fore, his axe cleaving a Bolton man-at-arms. Tormund roared beside him, his blade a whirlwind. "This is living," he bellowed, blood speckling his beard. Mance grinned, the old thrill of battle surging, but his eyes scanned for danger. Stannis' main force joined the fray, knights smashing into the Bolton center. Mance's quick strike had saved their flank, but the cost was grim. Wildlings fell, their screams swallowed by the storm. Mance saw Toreg, Tormund's son, clash with a Bolton knight. Before he could reach him, a lance pierced Toreg's chest and he crumpled into the snow. Tormund's howl of grief cut deeper than any blade. The battle ended with Bolton survivors fleeing into the night. Mance knelt by Toreg's body, his heart heavy. Tormund staggered over, eyes wild with loss. "My boy," he rasped, clutching Mance's shoulder. "Why'd we kneel for this?" Mance had no answer, only a vow. "We'll honor him with Winterfell's fall," he said, voice thick. They buried Toreg under a cairn, the snow their only shroud. Stannis rode up, his face stern but approving. "You fought well, Rayder. Your savages turned the tide." Mance bit back a retort at savages, nodding instead. "The Boltons know we're coming now," he said. "They'll dig in at Winterfell." Stannis' jaw tightened. "Then we'll break them." He rode off, leaving Mance with Tormund's silence. As dawn broke, the army regrouped, battered but unbroken. Mance felt Tormund's grief like a wound, their friendship strained. "You led us here," Tormund muttered. "Make it worth it." Mance clasped his arm. "I will." But doubt gnawed at him. Had kneeling to Stannis cost more than lives? The White Walkers waited north, and Westeros's wars seemed petty beside their threat. He looked to Winterfell, its distant towers shrouded in mist. The Boltons' flayed banners mocked the north, but Mance would tear them down. For Toreg, for his people he'd fight on, his oath to Stannis a chain he bore for survival. Chapter 7. The Siege of Winterfell. Winterfell's walls loomed through the blizzard, a grey fortress defying Stannis Baratheon's army. Mance Rayder stood with his free folk, their camp a sprawl of furs and fires outside the castle. The siege had begun, but Bolton archers and boiling oil made every approach deadly. Mance studied the defences, his ranger's eye spotting weaknesses. "We hit at night," he told Tormund. "Their sentries won't see us in this storm." Stannis, in his command tent, approved Mance's plan for a wildling raid. "Succeed, Rayder, and you're my commander," he said, his voice cold but certain. His knights muttered, resenting a savage's rise, but Mance cared little for their pride. He gathered his best, climbers, spearwives, and stealthy hunters. "We breached the outer gate," he said. "No heroics, just speed." Under cover of darkness, Mance led the raid, scaling a crumbling wall with ropes and iron hooks. Wildlings slipped past sentries, their knives silent. Mance reached the gatehouse, cutting down guards with his axe. They lowered the portcullis, signaling Stannis' forces. Horns blared and the army surged, but Ramsay Bolton's men rallied, turning the courtyard into a slaughter. Mance fought back-to-back with a spearwife, her grin fierce as they held the gate. The raid succeeded, weakening Winterfell's defences, but Ramsay escaped, a shadow fleeing into the snow. Mance cursed, knowing the bastard's cruelty would haunt them. As dawn broke, Stannis' banners flew over the outer walls, a partial victory. In the camp, Stannis named Mance commander, sparking outrage among Sir Godry and others. "A wildling leads us," Godry spat. Stannis silenced him. "He's earned it." Melisandre performed a fire ritual, her flames leaping as she chanted to Arlor. The wildlings watched, uneasy, their old gods whispering in the weirwood's shadow. Mance doubted her magic, but her influence over Stannis troubled him. "Keep your fires from my people," he warned her later. She smiled, eyes glinting. "The Lord of Light chooses, not you." Tormund, still grieving Toreg, stayed distant, his trust in Mance fraying. "You're their man now," he said, nodding at Stannis' tent. Mance shook his head. "I'm ours, Winterfell's not the end." He thought of his son, safe with Val and the White Walkers stirring north. This siege was a step, not the war. As snow fell, Mance sharpened his axe, the castle's heart still unconquered. The free folk sank by their fires, their voices defiant. He'd knelt to Stannis, but he fought for them, for Westeros' survival, not a crown. Winterfell would fall, or he would, and the North would remember the wildling who dared. Chapter 8. The fall of the Boltons. Winterfell's courtyard was a maelstrom of steel and screams as Stannis Baratheon's army stormed the breached gates. Mance Rayder fought at the forefront, his axe slick with blood, cutting through Bolton men-at-arms. Beside him, Jon Snow swung Longclaw, the bastard of Winterfell, a whirlwind of fury. The free folk roared, their spears and axes carving a path through the defenders. The castle's ancient stones, soaked in the North's history, now bore witness to its reclaiming. Mance spotted Roose Bolton atop the battlements, pale eyes calm amidst the chaos. "With me," Mance shouted to Jon, scaling a stairwell littered with corpses. Bolton's guards met them, but Mance's axe was relentless, felling two with brutal swings. Jon dispatched another, and they reached Roose, his flayed man banner tattered behind him. "You've no claim here, wildling," Roose said, drawing a blade. Mance sneered. "Nor you, flayer." The duel was swift and savage. Roose fought with cold precision, but Mance's wildling ferocity overwhelmed him. His axe bit into Roose's shoulder, then his chest, and the Lord of the Dreadfort fell, blood pooling on the stones. Mance stood over him, panting, his victory a signal to the north. Winterfell was free. Jon clapped his shoulder, a rare smile breaking through. "You've done it, Mance." But the victory was bitter. Ramsay Bolton had slipped away, a shadow in the snow. Mance cursed, knowing the bastard's cruelty would haunt Westeros. As Stannis' banners rose over the keep, the northern lords gathered, their skepticism turning to reluctant awe. Great Jon Umber raised a horn. "To the wildling who felled a Bolton," he boomed, and some drank, though others glared. Stannis entered the great hall, declaring Winterfell his seat. He named Jon Castellan, a move that steadied the Northmen. To Mance he said, "You've proven your oath, Rayder. Serve me and your people may thrive." Mance nodded, but his thoughts turned north to the Wall and the White Walkers. "This war's a shadow of what's coming," he told Jon later, by the Godswood's heart tree. "The dead don't care who holds Winterfell." The free folk celebrated, their songs echoing through the castle, but Tormund's grief for Toreg cast a pall. "You're their hero now," he muttered to Mance, "but we're still chained." Mance gripped his arm. "We'll break those chains for the living." As he looked to the sky, snow falling like ash, Mance felt the weight of his oath to Stannis, and the greater war awaiting them all. Chapter 9. The Wildling Oath. Winterfell's great hall glowed with torchlight, the air thick with the scent of ale and roasted meat. Mance Rayder stood before Stannis Baratheon and the Northern Lords, his free folk crowding the hall's edges. The fall of Winterfell had earned their respect, but Mance sought more security for his people. "My folk fought for this castle," he said, voice ringing. "Grant us land in the gift, and we'll defend Westeros as our own." Stannis, seated beneath the direwolf banners, weighed the request. The lords muttered, wary of wildlings as neighbours, but Great Jon Umber nodded. "They bled for us, let him have the gift." Stannis raised a hand. "So be it, Rayder, the gift is yours, but you'll swear to guard the north." Mance met his gaze. "Not to you, but to the living." Tormund stepped forward, his voice a thunderclap. "We free folk kneel to no man, but we'll fight for the realm." He led the wildlings in a new oath, not to Stannis' crown, but to survival against the dead. "We stand for the living, not for crowns," they roared, their voices shaking the rafters. Mance felt pride swell, his people's spirit unbroken despite his kneel. Melisandre watched from the shadows, her red eyes glinting. Later, by the fire, she approached Mance. "The Lord of Light sees your oath, but a greater battle looms at the wall, you're bound to it." Her words chilled him, her visions of ice and fire too close to the truths he'd seen beyond the wall. "My role's here," he said, but doubt gnawed at him. Tormund clapped Mance's shoulder, their rift healing. "You gave us a home, Mance, Toreg be proud." Mance nodded, hiding his fear for his son, hidden with Val. The oath bound his people to the north, but the White Walkers loomed, and Winterfell's warmth felt fleeting. As the free folk sang, Mance looked to the stars, sensing the long night's shadow creeping closer. Chapter 10. The Red God's Demand. In Winterfell's Godswood, the heart tree's red leaves whispered in the wind, its carved face watching Mance Rayder. He'd come for solace, but Melisandre found him, her crimson robes a stain against the snow. "The Lord of Light demands a sacrifice," she said, her voice low, fervent. "A king's blood to wake the fire against the ice." Her gaze pierced him, and Mance's blood ran cold. She knew of his son, hidden among the free folk. Mance's hand went to his axe. "No king burns my blood," he growled, stepping closer. Melisandre stood unmoved, her smile maddening. "Our laws cannot be denied, Rayder. Your boy's life could save Westeros." Rage surged, memories of his son's laughter clashing with her zeal. He drew his axe, but Jon Snow's voice stopped him. "Mance, don't." Jon, cloaked in black, had followed, his face grim. "She's Stannis' priestess, kill her and you break your oath." Mance lowered his weapon, trembling. "She threatens my son," he said. Jon's eyes softened. "I know where he is, I'll keep him safe." Mance trusted Jon, a man of honor, but Melisandre's power unnerved him. Stannis arrived, summoned by the commotion. Melisandre spoke of visions, urging a sacrifice to ensure victory against the others. Stannis, torn between justice and her zeal, faced Mance. "Is this true, Rayder, you hide a child?" Mance nodded, unflinching. "I'll die before he burns." Stannis' jaw tightened, but he turned to Melisandre. "No burnings, we win by steel, not sorcery." Her eyes flared, but she bowed, retreating. The Godswood fell silent, the heart tree's gaze heavy. Stannis warned Mance. "Your loyalty's tested, Rayder, don't fail me." Mance nodded, but his trust in Stannis wavered. Jon lingered, his voice low. "Melisandre's dangerous, but the real threat's north, we need you." Mance clasped his arm, grateful for an ally. "Keep my boy safe, Snow." As he left, Mance felt the weight of his choices, kneeling to Stannis, defying Melisandre, protecting his son. The free folk relied on him, but the White Walkers loomed, their cold hunger dwarfing Southron games. He sharpened his axe by the fire, Tormund nearby. "Trouble, Mance?" he asked. Mance shook his head. "Just the usual gods and kings." But in his heart, he knew the true war was coming, and no oath could shield his son from it. Chapter 11. The ravens warning. Winterfell's Maester's tower reeked of ink and musty parchment, as Mance Rayder stood with Stannis Baratheon and Jon Snow. A raven had arrived from the wall, its message dire. Whites massing beyond the haunted forest, their numbers growing. Mance's heart sank. "The White Walkers are moving," he said. "We must march north or the wall falls and Westeros with it." Stannis, maps strewn before him, frowned. "The north's barely mine. I'll not abandon Winterfell to Ramsay's schemes." His focus was iron: consolidate the lords, secure the crown. Mance pressed, his voice urgent. "The Boltons are flesh, the others are death. Ignore them and no crown'll save you." Jon backed him. "The Night's Watch can't hold alone, your grace. We need men." The argument stretched, Stannis' stubbornness clashing with Mance's pragmatism. Davos Seaworth, ever the mediator, spoke. "Send a force north, sire. Let Rayder lead it. Winterfell's secure for now." Stannis relented grudgingly. "Take 2,000 Rayder wildlings and watchmen. Report what you find." Mance nodded, relief tempered by dread. The wall was where he belonged, facing the true enemy. Outside, Mance rallied his free folk, their faces grim but resolute. Tormund hefted his axe. "Back to the cold, better than Southron feasts." Mance smiled, but his thoughts were on Val and his son hidden north. He'd sent word to keep them safe, but Melisandre's shadow lingered. Davos approached, his voice low. "Watch the Red Woman, Mance. She's not done with you." Mance nodded, his distrust of her fire magic deepening. Jon joined them, his direwolf ghost at his side. "I'd go with you," he said. "But Stannis needs me here." Mance clasped his shoulder. "Hold Winterfell, Snow, we'll hold the wall." The trust between them, forged in battle, was a rare light in the dark. As the free folk prepared, Mance felt the pull of the wilds beyond the wall, where he'd been king, not vassal. The column marched north, snow crunching underfoot. Mance led, his axe at his hip, the raven's warning echoing in his mind. The White Walkers were no tale, they were death, and he'd face them for his people, not Stannis' crown. Yet doubt gnawed. Could he protect his son, his folk, from both ice and fire? The wall loomed ahead, a barrier against the long night, and Mance steeled himself for the war he'd always known was coming. Chapter 12. The Haunted Forest Beyond the Wall. The haunted forest was a maze of gnarled trees and frozen earth, its silence broken only by the crunch of boots. Mance Rayder led 2,000 wildlings and Night's Watchmen through the snow, their torches flickering like stars in the dark. They sought signs of whites but found only abandoned villages, their hearths cold, marked by unnatural tracks. Mance's ranger instinct screamed danger. At a clearing he found Val, her blonde braid dusted with frost. She'd come from hiding, her eyes fierce. "Your son's safe," she whispered. "With the Spearwives' clan." Mance's heart eased, but only slightly. He pulled her close, their breath mingling. "Keep him hidden," he said. "Melisandre's reach is long." Val nodded, her hand on her dagger. "I'd gut her first." Their reunion was cut short by a scream. Whites surged from the trees, their dead eyes glowing blue. Mance's axe sang, cleaving rotted flesh, while wildlings and watchmen fought with spear and torch. Val's blade flashed, saving a ranger's life. Mance burned a white with his torch, its shrieks chilling, but the attack scattered his force. He rallied them, shouting, "Hold together," and they drove the undead back. The cost was grim, hundreds lay dead, their blood freezing in the snow. Mance found Tormund panting, a gash on his arm. "Bastard dead," Tormund growled. "Where's their master?" Mance shook his head, the White Walker's absence ominous. Val tended a wounded man, her face hard. "They're testing us," she said. Mance agreed, the forest's silence now a threat. He sent runners to warn Stannis and Jon, urging more men north. Tormund, wiping blood from his axe, spoke of old tales. "The children of the forest," he said. "They fought the others once, might know how." Mance had dismissed such legends as a ranger, but desperation changed his mind. "If they are real, we find them," he said. "We need every edge." Val refused to leave, joining the march. Mance didn't argue, her strength was his anchor. As they pressed deeper, the forest grew darker, the air colder. Mance thought of his son, of the free folks' new home in the gift, of the oath he'd sworn to Stannis. Kneeling had saved them, but this war demanded more. The White Walkers were coming, and Westeros's fate rested on blades, not crowns. A howl echoed, not wolf but something older. Mance gripped his axe, leading his battered band toward the unknown. The haunted forest held secrets, and he'd unearth them or die trying for his people, for the living. Chapter 13. The White Walker's shadow. The Frostfang's frozen lake glittered under a pale moon, its surface cracked like broken glass. Mance Rayder led his battered band. wildlings and night's watchmen through the icy peaks, tracking white signs. The air was sharp, biting lungs, and silence hung heavy. Mance's axe rested at his hip, his senses honed from years as a ranger. Something watched from the dark. A scream shattered the quiet. A white walker emerged, its armor like frost, eyes burning blue. Whites shambled behind, their decayed hands clawing. Mance shouted, "Dragonglass," and tossed obsidian blades to his men. He charged the walker, his axe useless but his dragonglass dagger drawn. The creature's blade met his, cold as death, but Mance ducked, plunging the black glass into its chest. It shattered, shrieking, and the whites faltered. The victory was costly, half their number lay dead, frozen in the snow. Tormund, bloodied, spat. "Where there's one, there's more." Mance nodded, the walker's gaze haunting him. It wasn't human, wasn't alive, it was Westeros's doom. He sent runners south to warn Stannis and Jon Snow, urging haste. "The wall won't hold without us," he said. Tormund kicked a white's corpse. "Old tales spoke of the children of the forest, they fought these bastards." Mance, once skeptical, now clung to hope. "If they're real, we find them." He said, "We need their secrets." Val, ever fierce, agreed, her dagger still red from the fight. The survivors pressed on, the lake's ice creaking underfoot. Mance's thoughts turned to his son, safe with Val's kin and the free folk in the gift. Kneeling to Stannis had bought them time, but this enemy cared nothing for oaths. The walker's cold had shaken him, its existence proof the long night was no myth. He gripped his dragonglass, its weight a promise. "We'll stop them," he told Val. She squeezed his hand, her eyes fierce. "Or die trying." As they marched, the frostfangs loomed, their peaks hiding ancient truths. Mance felt the burden of leadership, not as a king, but as a man fighting for the living. The White Walkers were coming, and Westeros's survival hung on his next move. The wind howled, carrying the scent of death, and Mance led his people toward a faint hope in the frozen dark. Chapter 14, The Children's Cave. Deep in the Frostfangs, Mance Rayder's band found a cave, its entrance hidden by twisted roots and snow. Inside, the air was warm, glowing with strange moss. The children of the forest awaited, small, leaf-clad, with eyes like ancient pools. Mance, Tormund, and Val stood before them, weapons lowered but wary. "You seek the others," a child said, voice like rustling leaves. "We know their hate." The children spoke of an ancient grudge when men and others clashed, breaking the world. "Only fire and unity can stop the long night," they said, offering a cache of dragonglass weapons, spears, daggers, arrowheads. Mance took one, its edge sharp as truth. "Will this kill them?" he asked. The child nodded. "But only together will you live." Mance grappled with his role, not a king, but a unifier for Westeros. Tormund snorted. "Fancy knives won't win a war." The child's eyes narrowed. "Without them, you're dust." Val, practical, began distributing the weapons. Mance felt the weight of their words. He'd knelt to Stannis for survival, but this fight demanded more, every man, Wildling and Southron, standing as one. The cave's glow felt like a fleeting hope. The children shared a prophecy. The knelt king must stand tallest. Mance's gut twisted. Did they mean him? He pushed the thought aside, focusing on his son, hidden south with Val's kin. "Val," he said, "take half the dragonglass to the wall. Keep my boy safe." She nodded, her jaw set, and left with a dozen warriors, her absence a pang in his chest. Tormund clapped his shoulder. "You're no king now, Mance, but you're ours." Mance nodded, the children's gift heavy in his hands. The free folk and watchmen prepared to march, their torches dim against the cave's light. The children watched, silent, as Mance led his band back into the cold. The wall called, and with it, the war for the living. As they emerged, snow fell thicker, the frostfangs a maze of danger. Mance gripped his new dagger, its obsidian gleaming. The White Walkers were close, their shadows lengthening. He'd knelt to save his people, but standing against the others would test every oath he'd made. The long night loomed, and Mance Rayder, once king, now carried Westeros's hope in a blade of black glass. Chapter 15, The Wall's Defense. Eastwatch by the sea's icy ramparts loomed as Mance Rayder returned, his band laden with dragonglass from the children's cave. Jon Snow met him at the gate, his face etched with worry. "Your runners spoke true," Jon said. "Whites mass beyond the wall, thousands." Mance's heart sank. "The others lead them," he replied, handing Jon a dragonglass spear. "We'll need these." Stannis Baratheon arrived with reinforcements, his army a mix of Southron knights and northern levies. He inspected the dragonglass, his gaze approving. "You've done well, Rayder." he said, a rare praise. Mance trained his free folk to wield the obsidian, their spears now tipped with black death. Even Bowen Marsh, a dour watchman, nodded respect. Savages or not, you're fighters, he grunted. The wall's defences hummed, catapults loaded, archers poised, barrels of pitch ready. Mance stood atop the ice, scanning the haunted forest. They'll come at night, he told Tormund. Fire and glass, that's our hope. Tormund grinned, but his eyes held Toreg's loss. Better than kneeling, he said. Mance nodded, the weight of his oath to Stannis lighter here, where the true war waited. Melisandre's fire ritual lit the night, her chants to Arlor boosting morale but chilling the wildlings. Mance watched her flames, distrusting their hunger. Keep her away from my folk, he told Jon. Jon agreed, his own unease clear. She sees too much, he said, glancing at Mance, who knew his son's secret was no secret to her. Stannis joined them, his crown stark against the ice. If the dead come, Rayder, you hold the first line. Mance accepted, his axe and dragonglass ready. The free folk chanted, their voices a defiance against the dark. Mance felt their strength, his people no longer outcasts but guardians of Westeros. Jon's direwolf ghost paced below, a white shadow mirroring their resolve. As dawn broke, a horn sounded, a single mournful note. Mance gripped his spear, the cold biting his fingers. The wall stood tall, but the White Walker's shadow grew. He'd knelt to Stannis, but here he fought for all the free folk, the Watch, the North. We're all free folk now, he told his men, their cheers echoing. The long night was coming, and Mance Rayder would meet it head-on. Chapter 16. The first wave. The wall trembled as a tide of whites crashed against its base, their dead hands clawing at the ice. Mance Rayder led the first line, his free folk hurling dragonglass-tipped spears into the writhing mass. Torches blazed, setting whites aflame, their shrieks piercing the night. Stannis Baratheon's archers loosed volleys from above while catapults launched burning pitch, turning the snow to fire. Mance fought with axe and obsidian, cutting through decayed flesh. Burn them, he roared, leading a sortie to save a crumbling Night's Watch outpost. His wildlings moved like wolves, their dragonglass finding white hearts. Tormund's axe cleaved skulls, his laughter wild. This is a fight, he bellowed. Mance grinned, but fear gnawed. Where were the White Walkers? Jon Snow fought nearby, Longclaw flashing until a white's claw raked his arm. He fell, blood staining the snow. Mance took command, shouting, "Hold the line!" His voice rallied watchmen and wildlings alike, their spears a wall of black glass. Stannis' knights charged below, their steel useless but their courage true. The whites slowed, their numbers thinning under fire and obsidian. As dawn crept over the wall, the attack subsided, the snow littered with charred corpses. Mance helped Jon to his feet, the Lord Commander pale but alive. You led well, Jon rasped. Mance shrugged. Had to, Snow, but a scout's cry chilled them. A White Walker had been spotted, its blue eyes watching from the forest. The true threat waited. Stannis descended, his face grim, a wound on his shoulder. We held Rayder, he said, but this is no victory. Mance nodded, the wall's cracks a warning. They'll come again, he said. We need more dragonglass, more men. The free folk gathered, their songs defiant despite losses. Tormund clapped Mance's back. You're still ours, kneeler or not. Mance looked north, where the haunted forest hid the other's malice. His son, safe with Val, was his anchor, but the war for Westeros demanded all. He'd knelt to Stannis, but this fight was his. Wildling Ranger, father. Burn them all, or we're all dead. He told his men, their cheers a spark against the cold. The long night's first wave had broken, but Mance knew the storm was only beginning. Chapter 17. The Betrayal. Castle Black's courtyard was a frozen stage, lit by Melisandre's ritual flames. Mance Rayder's breath steamed as he sharpened his axe, the wall's shadow heavy. A wildling boy, breathless, stumbled to him. The Red Woman, she's after your son, he gasped. Mance's blood froze. Melisandre had learned of his boy, hidden with Val's kin, and planned to burn him for Arlor's favor against the others. Mance stormed to Melisandre's tent, finding her chanting over a fire, her eyes gleaming. You'd burn my blood, he snarled, axe raised, for your god. Melisandre's voice was silk. A king's son could save Westeros, Rayder, the flames demand it. Rage consumed him, he lunged, but Jon Snow's shout halted him. Mance, stop, you'll doom us all. Stannis Baratheon entered, his face stern. What treachery is this? He demanded. Mance pointed at Melisandre. She hunts my son for her fire. Jon confirmed the boy's hiding place, swearing to protect him. Melisandre pleaded, "The Lord of Light requires sacrifice to defeat the ice." Stannis, torn, glared at her. "No burnings, priestess, you've gone too far." He banished her from the wall, her eyes blazing with defiance as she left. The wildlings rallied to Mance, their trust in him fierce, but Stannis' knights grew wary, whispering of divided loyalties. Tormund gripped Mance's shoulder. "You should have gutted her," he growled. Mance shook his head. "Killing her breaks my oath to Stannis." But doubt gnawed, his son was at risk and the alliance frayed. Jon approached, his face grim. "I'll send men to guard your boy, focus on the wall." Mance nodded, grateful but uneasy. The White Walkers loomed, their whites massing beyond the ice. His oath to Stannis had saved the free folk, but Melisandre's betrayal exposed its fragility. As he returned to the ramparts, the wind carried a chill deeper than winter. "You'll burn before my son does," he muttered, his vow a shield against her flames. The wall stood silent, but horns would soon sound. Mance gripped his dragonglass dagger, his son's safety his anchor. The free folk chanted, their voices a defiance against gods and kings. He'd knelt to save them, but the long night cared little for oaths. Westeros's fate hung on his blade, and Mance Rayder steeled himself for the storm. Chapter 18. The long night begins. The wall shuddered as White Walkers struck, their dark magic cracking the ice like thunder. Mance Rayder stood atop the ramparts, dragonglass spear in hand, as whites swarmed below, a tide of death. Jon Snow and Tormund fought beside him, their blades flashing in torchlight. Stannis Baratheon's knights poured pitch, setting the undead ablaze, but the walkers' blue eyes pierced the dark, unyielding. Mance led a charge to the base, his free folk wielding obsidian with deadly precision. A White Walker loomed, its blade frost-wreathed. Mance dodged its strike, plunging his dragonglass into its heart. It shattered, screaming, and whites fell leaderless. The defenders cheered, but Mance saw the wall's cracks widen. Another blow would breach it. "Fire!" he roared, torching a white pile. Jon, bloodied, rallied the Night's Watch, his voice hoarse. Stannis fought below, his sword useless but his courage fierce, until a white's claw gashed his side. Mance pulled him back, shouting, "Hold the line." The free folk and watchmen stood as one, their spears a black glass wall. Tormund's axe hewed whites, his grief for Toreg fueling his rage. The battle raged into dawn, the snow red with blood and ash. Mance's arms ached, his dragonglass slick. The walkers retreated, but the wall groaned, its eastern flank crumbling. Jon panted, "We can't hold much longer." Mance nodded, his mind racing. The children's prophecy, the knelt king must stand tallest, echoed, urging him to act. Stannis, wounded but unbowed, climbed the ice. "You fought like a king, Rayder," he said, his voice strained. Mance shook his head. "I fight for the living." The free folk sang, their defiance a spark in the dark. Mance thought of his son, safe with Val and Val herself, carrying dragonglass south. He'd knelt to Stannis, but this war was his, for Westeros, for his people. A horn sounded, low and dread. More whites massed, their masters unseen but near. Mance gripped his spear, the wall's ruin a warning. The long night had begun, and no oath could stop it. He rallied his men, their faces grim but resolute. "We stand or we fall," he shouted, and their roar shook the ice. The White Walker's shadow grew, but Mance Rayder, once king, would face it head-on. Chapter 19. The kneeled kings sacrificed. The wall's ruins smoked as whites poured through breaches, their numbers endless. Mance Rayder stood with Tormund and a small band, dragonglass in hand, as the long night swallowed Westeros. The White Walker's magic had shattered the ice, and Stannis Baratheon's army faltered, their fires dimming. Mance saw one hope, a hidden wildfire cache in the haunted forest, a trap from his ranger days. "We lure them," Mance told Tormund. "Draw the whites to the wildfire and burn them all." Tormund nodded, his eyes fierce despite his wounds. "You're mad, Mance, but I'm with you." They gathered 50 warriors, wildlings and watchmen, knowing most wouldn't return. Mance thought of his son, safe with Val, and steeled himself. This was for them. They slipped into the forest, whites trailing like a tide. Mance's band fought, dragonglass felling dozens, but the dead pressed closer. At the cache, Mance lit a torch, his hands steady. "Run," he shouted, but stayed, ensuring the spark caught. Tormund grabbed him. "Not without you." Mance shook his head. "I knelt so you could stand." A white's claw tore his side, blood soaking his furs, the wildfire ignited, a green inferno erupting. Thousands of wights burned, their shrieks shaking the trees. Mance fell, his vision fading, Tormund dragging him clear. In his friend's arms he coughed blood, the pain distant. "My boy, safe," he rasped. Tormund nodded, tears cutting through grime. "Safe, Mance, you did it." Mance smiled, the fire's heat on his face. He'd been king beyond the wall, then Stannis' sworn man, but this was his true stand, for the free folk, for Westeros. The children's prophecy rang true, the knelt king stood tallest. His sacrifice had bought time, not victory, but it was enough. "Tell my son," he whispered, "I fought for him." His eyes closed, the long night fading to peace. Tormund carried Mance's body back, the wildfire's glow lighting their path. The wall held barely, the wights' advance broken. Jon Snow met them, his face grim as he saw Mance. "He saved us," Tormund said, voice breaking. The free folk keened, their song a lament for their knelt king. Mance Rayder's life ended, but his fire burned on, a beacon against the dark. Chapter 20. The dawn of the free. Months later, Winterfell's godswood bloomed with spring's first warmth, a fragile dawn in Westeros. Jon Snow, now Warden of the North, stood before a heart tree, honouring Mance Rayder. The free folk had settled the gift, their new home named Mance's Hope. In his memory, Tormund Giantsbane, weathered but unbowed, told Mance's son, now a boy of 5, of his father's heroism. "He was no king by the end," Tormund said, kneeling by the boy. "He was more our shield against the dark." The child clutched a dragonglass dagger, Mance's last gift, his eyes fierce like Val's. She stood nearby, her grief tempered by pride. The free folk sang, their voices carrying Mance's defiance, a legacy stronger than any crown. Stannis Baratheon, recovering from his wounds, ruled the north, but without Melisandre's fire, his grip faltered. The lords respected him, yet whispered of Mance, the wildling who'd felled Boltons and wights. Jon, castellan of Winterfell, united the houses, his leadership a bridge Mance had built. "He knelt for us all," Jon told Tormund, his direwolf ghost at his side. The White Walkers remained, their threat lurking beyond the wall's ruins. The north prepared, dragonglass stockpiled, fires ready. Mance's sacrifice had bought time, his wildfire trap a legend among the free folk. Tormund led their warriors, training with Night's Watchmen, their oath to the living unbroken. "Mance gave us this," Tormund said, gesturing to Mance's hope. "Val raised Mance's son, teaching him the wildling way, freedom, not fealty. Your father knelt to save you," she told him. "But you'll stand tall." The boy nodded, gripping his dagger, a spark of Mance's fire in him. The free folk thrived, no longer outcasts but guardians of the north, their songs a promise to fight on. Jon looked north, where the long night waited. Mance's stand had shown the way, unity, not crowns, would save Westeros. "He was our knelt king," Jon murmured, the heart tree's leaves rustling. The north stood stronger, forged by a wildling sacrifice. As dawn broke, Mance's hope gleamed, a testament to the man who'd knelt so others could stand against the dark.